See, now that's why it's always I go directly to the source and let the source tell their side of the truth, because reading newspaper articles and listening to news clips and telling your story that away, that's to me, that's tacky, and that's just it's laziness. Yeah. Put in the work and go to the source and find out the exact truth of what happened from the source. Yep. No, okay.
Absolutely. And I even got into an argument with the investigators at the time because they kept saying that it was my mother's bracelet. And
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Mother was very particular about her jewelry, and she would never, ever in life wear anything fake. And they could have asked anybody in the family that. Like, she had, jewelry worth a lot of money. That was just her thing. And the bracelet was extremely fake. I mean, anybody could have told that, could have seen that. So that was my thing there. I actually argued with the investigators about it. They also tried to say that I had her clothes on, too, and that wasn't the case.
Okay. Now, while all this was going on, what was Mr. Williams doing?
I actually forgot that he was even there, because with everything happening, it was just so surreal to me that it was like I was in some type of nightmare. So I didn't even realize that he was even anywhere in the house until I understood what was happening with my mom. I didn't even realize that she was even dead. And then when all of it came, to life for me, I'm like, oh my God, Joe. So I go outside. Well, I look for him in the house, and he wasn't anywhere around, so I thought he had left me. But he was standing outside smoking a cigarette. And he was standing outside the house. And I didn't know it at first. I walked out the door, and I'm like, Joe. And he tells me to shh, don't say my name. And I go around the corner, and he's standing there smoking a cigarette.
So did he witness this, or he was outside the entire time smoking a cigarette?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, so actually, my assumption is that he was rummaging through the house while this was going on, because he had stolen a big jewelry box, an older one that my mom had. She had her old jewelry and some of my grandma's jewelry in there. And so when we got back to his house, he had a pillowcase that he had put in the car with me that I didn't even know. Well, he had me go get it. And when I opened this pillowcase, there was a jewelry box in there, her cell phone, and her checkbook. No, the checkbook wasn't in there. It was her cell phone, and there was something else. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't a checkbook. I didn't know anything about the checkbook until after the fact when I got arrested. But he had stolen some of her jewelry. And I think that's where they tried to say the jewelry off of her body was that, but it wasn't the same jewelry. It was old jewelry that she didn't wear anymore. And I tried to get it back from him, because I didn't understand why he had taken it, because he had acted like he was scared and couldn't believe what happened had happened, and it was just, I don't know. And I realized, oh my God, this dude is, what I'm saying, he stole my mom's stuff. And he ended up taking off, and I never saw him again after that.
Okay. Well, now the jury thing makes sense since you just described it. Okay. Tell us, how did you move the body? How did you guys remove the body from the home?
Okay, so, well, I couldn't do it by myself. And my intentions for it was, I wanted to call the cops was probably, the fourth thing on my mind. But seriously, when something like that happens, that really isn't your first thought. It's not. I don't care what anybody says. If you haven't been in that situation, it's just not your first thought. I wanted to bury her. I wanted to give her a proper burial, because, even though that I had done this, I felt extremely bad and that she was owed that. So I wanted him to help me move her, and I wanted to find a place, to bury her. I didn't have any plans or anything. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just, going by the moment. So he said that he wasn't going to help me, and I pretty much begged him. And then finally he was like, all right. He was like, well, hold on. And he went outside, and he got the duct tape. So that's where they are trying to link the duct tape with the store, saying that it was premeditated. So he went and got the duct tape, and he taped her ankles and her wrists together. And then we both picked her up and put her in the car. And another strange thing is what I didn't even realize in that moment was so he didn't want to put her in his car because clearly he didn't want to be linked to it or anything. So I had to use her car, and he had the keys already. Because I told him, I was like, well, I got to find the keys. He was like, I got them. and he had them already. And it didn't strike me as odd until, I started thinking about it months down the road, but it was already too late. But he had already had the keys to her car, so we ended up putting her in her car.
Okay. Now, Miss Orta, is it true that you guys put your mother's deceased body in the trunk and you drove that car while Mr. Williams drove in the car that you guys drove together in Defiance County? Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Now, while you was doing this drive, your mother's dead body was in the back of the trunk. What was going through your mind? Were you scared? What was just really going through your mind that your mother's body was in this trunk and you was driving her car?
I was tripping. Like, it was still a very, very surreal experience for me. Like, there were moments that came and went that it was like I was, living a reality, but then at the same time, it was unreal. It was absolutely unreal. And the whole way there, it was almost like mentally I was in a...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Mentally, I was like in a bubble, and my conscience was eating me alive. There was a couple times where I actually pulled over. There was one time I pulled over and actually looked in the trunk because I thought that she was kicking the trunk like she was still alive, and I panicked. So I pulled over, and I popped the trunk because I thought that she was alive, but she wasn't. But my conscience was eating me so much that I was hallucinating. There were so many thoughts. A lot of it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's real. Like, I just didn't realize that it was real.
After abandoning your mother's car with her body in the trunk, Mr. Williams and yourself drove back to Lima, Ohio. What was the ride like driving back?
Okay, so we didn't abandon the car just yet. So,
Okay.
All right, so we drove back. I drove my mother's car. He drove his car. That's kind of where we left off last time.
Right.
Now, I wasn't too familiar with Lima like that, so we stopped at a gas station as soon as we got into Lima. Matter of fact, the gas station was right across from the Lima prison. I remember that. Mm-hmm. And he told me to stop there so he could tell me where to go next. Mm-hmm. So when we pulled in... he told me to just follow him to his house, is what it was. So on the way to his house, he actually got pulled over because there was a license plate light out on his car. Well, when he got pulled over, we were like right around the corner from his house. So I ended up just driving around the corner in his house, to his house, pulled in the back parking lot. And then he pulled in shortly after me. We went inside. So when we got inside, actually I went in the house before he did, and I waited on him. So when we're in there, he had a buddy, his name was Spanky, and I was in there with him. I wasn't really talking a whole lot. You could probably tell that I was nervous. I was obviously acting very strange, so Spanky had asked me what was going on, and I told him, I'll talk to him later about it. So Joe ended up coming in the house, and when he got in there, he told me to go get the pillowcase out of the car and meet him upstairs. So I didn't know what he was talking about, and he told me it's in the front seat. Well, it was in the front seat of the car, of my mother's car, the entire time. I didn't even realize that it was there. So I went out and I got it, had no idea what was in it, brought it in the house, and went upstairs into his room like he told me to. So when we get up there, I asked him, I'm like, what are we going to do? Da-da-da-da. And he wouldn't even talk to me for real. He took the pillowcase and...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Emptied it out on the bed, and when he emptied it, I saw my mother's old jewelry box and her cell phone, and I instantly was pissed. And he grabbed the box, and he had opened it and started grabbing the jewelry that was out of it. And the only thing that I remember was a ring that was my grandmother's that my mom actually gave to me, but I gave back to her so I wouldn't lose it. And he was putting these rings on the ends of his fingers, and I tried to snatch it from him, and he pulled his arm away from me, and he told me he told me I owed him that, is exactly what he said. So we argued for a little bit or whatever, and then I left alone. I started crying, and I, asked him, what are we going to do? And he was like, well, I don't know what you're going to do. He was like, but I'm out of here. And he left, and I never seen him after that. So now I'm worried because I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know Lima like that, so I didn't even know where to go. So I went downstairs and I talked to Spanky, and I told him what was going on because it was his house. And I felt like he should know because he was on parole, and I didn't want him to get in any kind of trouble or whatever. And him and I were kind of close. Mm-hmm. So I had told him the situation, and he pretty much was like, hey, listen, I don't want involved, whatever. I respected that. So I only knew one other person, and it was, we called him White Boy Corey. And him and I was kind of cool. I'd only known him for a couple months or whatever, so I had called him, and I was like, hey, listen, I need your help. And he was like, all right, come pick me up. So I took the car, and I went to pick him up, and I told him the situation, and I told him that I needed help. I said that I wanted a barrier, and he's pretty much like, all right, whatever. Well, I don't know if he didn't believe what was going on or what, but we pulled into his house, and he just kind of took it as a joke, and it wasn't funny to me. He was just kind of like laughing or whatever, and I'm like, this shit ain't funny, man. I didn't understand why he was laughing because it was a very serious matter to me. Well, he asked me, he was like, well, where's she at? And I told him, I'm like, she's in the trunk. And I had told him that before, but he obviously didn't believe me. So he was like, well, let me see. So I popped the trunk, and I didn't even open it far enough because I didn't want to see. But I had opened it, and I remember him looking, and then I hurry up and shut it, and he freaked out. So he runs in his house, and it's his mom, and some dude is there, they called him Q. And he tells Q about this. So I go upstairs and find out that he told Q about this, and I'm just like, I don't even know, what to do. I was desperate. The guy was like, I'll help you. I just got out the joint for the same thing. Just meet me such and such. So, no, he didn't say meet me. He said, what did he say? I don't even remember. He told me something. I don't remember what it was. Oh, no, he did say meet me. He said, meet me at my cousin's house, and told me where to go. So I ended up going to his cousin's, driving to this house or whatever, and it was daylight by this time, and he told me, he was like, well, we'll just come back tonight since it's light outside or whatever, and park the car behind his cousin's house in this alley. And I ended up leaving it, and I never went back because I couldn't. I never met him. I never did anything. The people that lived around the block ended up calling the cops because the car had been parked there for so many days. It was abandoned, so I couldn't go back to it.